Welcome to the 11th episode of the Influential Wellnesspreneur podcast. My name is Sebastian Hilbert and I'm the Wellnesspreneur expert. I help wellness business owners to get more clients by reaching a global audience with an effective online presence. Today I have Dave Nixon with me, or some may know him under Diamond Dave Nixon, especially when you have seen him on Facebook before. And he's the owner of Func Fitness, which is a different approach to fitness, which we will learn, I'm sure, more about today. Let me quickly say hello. How are you, Dave?
I am extremely well, thank you, Sebastian. Thank you for allowing me to jump. I'm not really jumping on, am I? I'm just on a video. I'm not really jumping. I'm sitting. But thank you for having me on. How about that?
Yeah, very good. Do you agree that's a different approach to fitness? What you have?
No, I think we're a very basic approach to movement. However, we are a different approach to your traditional gym setting.
Yeah.
So
that definitely.
Yeah. So in a world where mirrors and machines are commonplace in the fitness industry, we're the opposite of that.
Very cool. I definitely will dive a little bit deeper into that and see what your approach to that is. But folks, let me quickly tell you, Dave was one of my biggest influences when I first started on my journey, actually, because he passed on a book to me called How to Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Probably many will know that. And that was a big game changer for me in terms of what I want to do with my life. And that was about 7 years ago when Dave started his Func Fitness business. And since then, let me tell you, he has been super busy. He has trained and coached over 5,000 people. He has traveled America and attended over 40 different gyms, meeting personalities in the industry. He runs a podcast now called Mood Prep and contributed regularly to Men's Muscle and Men's Health magazine. So definitely some great stuff you've done that over the years, Dave. But I'd really like to go back to 7 years ago when you started Func Fitness. I think it was about 7 years. Is that right?
Yeah. It was literally 7 years ago last month.
Right. What really drove you back then to start this?
I think there was probably a few factors that sort of got me to go out on my own and start my own business. And it never was the idea of I wanted to work for myself, because I think that person would be a bit of an asshole boss. And so, am I allowed to swear on this? Is that yes? It's a no? Is this like a green podcast?
Just go with the flow, Dave.
All right. I'm not going to be dropping C-bombs, but
good.
Yeah. So, but what I'm getting there is like when I recognized that there was no more real growth within the business I was working in before then, the entrepreneurial, I suppose, streak of wanting to get paid more in the business I was in just wasn't like, it didn't satisfy. It was like, that's not why I'm living. Right. And so I wanted to be able to learn more and grow more and do more. And, I then went and worked for another company for like literally 4 months. And while I was there, I was like, nah, this isn't me either. And it's not it doesn't match my morals and values. And I knew that age that I could get away with starting a business when I didn't have mouths to feed or a mortgage to pay. And I knew I could probably cop the lessons along the way. And there have been many lessons along the way, and many more to go as life goes. But yeah, so really it was from this place of like, well, I don't agree with how gyms are run. I think there's more to it. There's no more growth in the business that I'm in. I suppose the youth that I had at the time and being naive was actually a bit of a bonus as well.
Interesting. So. Right. So do you mean in terms of just jumping into the cold water kind of thing in that sense?
Yeah. For sure. Being able to be like, fuck it. And then be like, oh, I didn't mean that. It's just like, I'm just like getting hit left, right and center. The business went really well. I started with 6 clients in the corner of a mixed martial arts gym, right? And the business just grew and grew. And it's like winning on the pokies the first time you play them. You're like, fuck, this is easy. And so, and then sure enough, as seasons of life happens, I hit a winter and I learnt my lessons and we grew into our first proper facility, and then we grew within a couple of months. We opened up another facility, literally like a month and a half, 2 months later. It was in the plan, but it was the wrong facility for our brand. It was the wrong people in the seats driving that, and you know, that was a 4.5-year business degree that cost a lot of money, you know. So but it's like, I wouldn't change anything. It was exactly what I asked for. So in that circumstance, it's like, the reason why I started in the industry is because I'm like looking at a gym, and I remember the actual day I was about 18. I worked in the fitness industry from when I was 15. I worked at one gym from 15 to 21, another gym for a couple of months, then started Func. And I remember watching this person like do these bicep curls with headphones, chewing gum in front of a mirror. And I'm like, how the fuck is this human? How is this a human concept? Like, I'm not saying it's wrong and we shouldn't do it. I think bicep curls are a legitimate supplementary exercise, but it's like to think that it's normal for a human being to go to a facility where they punch in their number, right? And then they do robotic tedious movements that have zero to minimal correlation to anything they do outside of that facility under fluorescent lights before they put powders down their throat. And we're going to call this health. I'm like, it's better than the opposite, sure. But this isn't how a human being as a mammal, as an animal is actually designed to observe, you know, but that's how we do. We break our lives up, and we think that the way that we have relationships doesn't affect our work and vice versa. It's like, no, it's all integrated. And if we just continue to keep it, you know, apart, then we're going to run the illusion to think that the way that we do one thing doesn't affect other things in our life. And so I started to look at the body a bit different and started to think maybe it moves as one unit, which clearly it does. We all know this. And so that's really where it was like, I'm not getting paid to do this shit anymore and not growing. So yeah.
Amazing.
That's where it all started.
I think this is probably something that most of the people, if not all of the people who listen to this podcast today, will gel with, that you have to look at the body, your life and everything in a holistic kind of manner, and how important this is, and how we probably, in my opinion, also have lost this in many ways. It just, you know, that's one facet of an expression of how we've lost it, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's, we don't have enough time today to really delve into, you know, all those sorts of things. And it's just like, in the industry, we are marketed to think that we need the fitness industry, and that's a load of shit. The fitness industry needs us. It 100% needs us, and it's a bad industry because it prides on insecurities to make money. And it's like, that's the same as the makeup industry. It's the same as home security, right? But I still think we should have them. Like, I'm not saying we shouldn't, but don't let it use you. You use it. And that's a big difference. And that's coming from someone that's worked in gyms for 15 years, right? Don't just pay someone's rent and then feel bad about not going. That's dumb. It's not good, and it's not healthy. You're literally paying someone's rent to feel bad.
Very true. Very true. So what are some major differences between like how you approach this, like fitness and that health compared to what you don't like?
So I think it's the things that I don't like about the approach to fitness and health would probably be more so based around people valuing income over impact. Okay. So it's sort of like someone going to a traditional gym setting and doing a traditional 2 to 3 day split. I don't have an issue with, right? And it's because it's like, who's to say that I'm right and that's the wrong thing to do? I think people should continually develop learning around how the body functions and how emotions and their thoughts impact their actual physical armoring, right? And if you want to do a bit more reading on that, I think William Reich is someone to do some, you know, mind you, he was one of Freud's students. So, and it depends on how controversial you want to get, but it's just like, I don't have an issue with that. What's like, my girlfriend, she works for Les Mills, which is a big fitness company that does a lot of massive group fitness. We work in small group, right? We're the opposite of that. And she does a lot of hypertrophy training. And she's happy doing that. Like, and she learns more about her body, and she's understanding how things work and piece together. Like, and that's not what we do. In a nutshell, it is like the actual result kind of so similar, but the way to get there is different, right? And so I don't have an issue with that at all. I think every single place in the industry has a place. I think there are certain people masquerading marketing strategies in order to make income on people's insecurities. And I think that's our biggest issue. Yeah. I think that's more so what I don't like, as opposed to the style of training. I don't care if people powerlift. I tell people not to go to the gym if they don't want to. It's like, oh, what should I do? You know, I want to tone up. It's like, what should I do? You won't like my answer. What? It's like, what are you doing? Oh, I'm just going on the treadmill. Do you like the treadmill? No, don't go on the treadmill. What? It's like, well, it's a fucking bad relationship. It's not going to last. You can't hate yourself into like happiness, you know? So it's like, it's really basic. We're human beings. We're designed to move, to eat food that grew from the ground. I had a mum, and be happy and learn how to deal with resilience, or learn resilience to deal with, you know, difficult situations. And I think we should probably focus more on that.
Very good. So what's your response to that thing, mind over matter kind of thing?
Mind over matter. What does it mean to you?
Oh, I just remembered, you know, when I tried to push, let's say running right now, I was talking myself, after, you know, mind over matter, just keep going, you know. Yes, your body is tired and your body doesn't like it, but I push with my mind.
Sure.
But that is maybe just a small example, but when it comes to, you know, a treadmill, doing something that I don't like, and I just use my thinking to overcome this, is probably not the right thing to do, as you just said.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I think it's interesting because what's mind over matters it's a good concept, and it's a good concept in the same way everything in moderation is a good concept, right? Everything is in moderation is a good concept. If your moderation is grew from the ground, I had a mum, maybe every now and again, a little bit of sugar and a little bit of starchy carbs and some fat, right? Some pizza, maybe. I come from a place that I think it's healthier to have a beer with some friends and some good banter than it is to bitch about someone over a salad. Like, I think that's, you know, a good concept of health. But what I'm getting at is like, mind over matter is good if we're teaching ourselves resilience, because resilience is extremely crucial, because resilience works in the gym, but the thing about it, it also works with the suffering that we have to deal with outside of the gym. And that's what we don't realize. And so the gym can be really used as a vehicle to develop that if we do it well. So, but here's the other thing, is that mind over matter. If you're doing something you don't want to, like, why are you running? It's like, oh, it gives me an escape. Well, what are you escaping from? Like, what are you not facing? Because you're not really mind over mattering then when you're telling yourself to zone out and just run, because you're probably going to run into an injury. And then the thing that you're actually literally trying to run away from is going to be right there in your face. And I think it's a matter of going, well, mind over matter is important. If we can really understand that and build a meaning for it for ourselves, then we can utilize it to be able to become a better human and a better contributor to society. But if we're using it to justify why we should keep running away from the things we should face and the conversations we should have, then it's just going to come back full circle, and you'll just end up being injured. And I've seen it too many times. I've been it, right? It's like, why is this happening to me? And I look back now, you're like, oh, that fucking makes sense, right? You're like, I should have just had that conversation. That's what injured me, right? The stress around that. And then the video I was creating about what could potentially happen if that thing happened, and then it never happened that way, and it was fine. So I think I mean, in the sense that your body will definitely give out before your mind does, but the whole train hard or go home kind of concept is like, well, sort of, but some days, like, you can't train as hard as go ham, if you want to use that example of hard as a mofo. You can't do that every single day, right? And the reason why you can't do that every single day, and this is what's dangerous about the pressure of doing so, is the fact that, I'll say that afterwards, but is that there is no one athlete in the world that does that. Athletes taper their weeks and their intensity and their volume so that they can continue to perform and stay injury free. Yet we expect our public servants to go hard or go home, or they're a pussy. It's like, what a horrible relationship with your health and your body. No, learn to listen and communicate with your body, and make sure that you're understanding that training should be this thing that allows you to learn how to use your body and celebrate what your body can do. And over time, you can definitely train consistently harder than what you did earlier, in the same way that you may earn more now than what you did 15 years ago if you worked consistently at one thing. Like, it can be really that simple.
Yeah, and I like that. And I think that comes back to a conversation someone said in a conversation I had on a couple of days ago, and she actually was doing Muay Thai professionally, and is now a therapist, and she's really into, I forgot the word for it, but it's ancient Indian medicine, where you have different foods for different people, depending on if you're hot, cold. You may have heard of that. I can't remember.
I have never looked into it. I definitely know that I've heard of something around that for sure.
Very interesting. And what she was always saying is it's really about monitoring. And I thought monitoring, that's a really cool word, where she says you have to be constantly aware of your body and with all senses and monitor what's going on, so you can listen to small little senses or little things.
Yeah,
You can react to it, because I'm a strong believer, if you don't, it will come with a big hammer if you kind of suppress that.
Yeah, so like the feathered brick truck analogy, right? The first it's a feather, and it's just like, hey, you probably shouldn't do that. The next it's a brick, you're like, oh, it hurt, but I'm strong. I'm mind over matter, right? That's where it can become dangerous. And the next thing is a fucking truck, and it's just like, where did that come from? It's like, oh man,
yeah.
Why does it have the same number plate as the last one that hit you? Come on, mate, learn your lesson.
Very
and so,
cool.
yeah. So it's like, in that circumstance, the monitoring is crucial. And we have a system at our gym called Safe, Strong, Sexy, which is effectively how we first started to coach coaches to coach movement, right? But where that sort of comes down to is also how we program and how we view human development, really. So like sexy is effectively self-actualization, whereas strong is not, I'm getting stronger and lifting heavier weights. Strong is, I have a strong relationship with my body, right? And which means maybe I am getting stronger, but I'm like, stronger for what? Like, let's really get down to what I'm like, oh, I'm squatting heavier. Okay, that's great. Like, but what's the result of that? Because it could be just like, I think I need to earn more money. Why? So I can get the next TV. Like it's just being careful of playing that game, because then you risk yourself of injuries that you should have avoided, should have been able to avoid otherwise. And so it's just having that awkward conversation that no one really wants to have, because it's in fashion to get stronger and fitter and all that sort of stuff. It's like, wow, your 1 hour in the gym has to help positively impact your 23 hours outside of it. Otherwise, what's the point?
Very good. Yeah, totally agree. And it's something that comes to mind is you're focusing on the effect of the outcome of the what, right? That's what I always like to use. So the what is going to the gym. The outcome is getting stronger physically, mentally, and the effect is that you almost can cope better with life, really.
Absolutely. That's 100%. That's what it is. People don't think that, as a trainer, especially as a coach, they're two different things, heavily two different things. But as a trainer, if you don't realize that your responsibility is to help impact this person's whole family line, like lineage, like in the future, like that's exactly what it is. Someone comes in and says, I want to lose some weight. They're overweight. Whatever. Let's just use that basic example. Okay. They're not saying to you, can you help me lose weight? They're like, I am subconsciously concerned about the future health of my grandchildren. Can you please help me change, and you have a window opportunity there to deal with that person's insecurities, to make that person feel safe, and to make sure that if you're with that person for 12 weeks, 12 months, or 12 years, they leave you with a higher health IQ and a better understanding of how food and movement affect their body. They shouldn't leave there with some sort of codependency on a shadow of who you used to be. And that's what a lot of trainers will do without realizing.
Very good. Dave, I'd like to go what you said at the beginning, that you learned quite a few lessons when you built that gym or that movement, really. And what were some major lessons in terms from a business point of view that you have learned that you think this is something you still hold dearly and use?
Probably a couple of things. So one of the things, lesson would be, so the advice would be patient. Like you're playing a 50-year game, right? Probably longer. So you don't need to have multiple gyms in 3 years. It looks good on the outside, and that's really all you're doing it for, because you'll know that you're not mature enough yet. And one of the things I had to learn, the lesson was mature and then grow. Don't grow and then try and mature, because you've got people's health, you've got people's families, you've got people's joints, bodies at risk, and it's just like, for what, your ego. So if you're really in this for the right reasons, be patient with the growth and really get to work. Like if I felt after 10 years in the industry, I'm like, cool, I finished my apprenticeship, right? Now it's time to be the student all over again. And so it's the best people, the best coaches aren't coaches, they're actually students. And so that's one of the most important things. And I think in the sense of the business side of things, where we made the golden mistake was that we grew before we matured. And that's all well and good if you've got like a product-based company, you don't give a fuck about the customer. But when you're in a service-based organization and you can replicate systems, but you can't replicate community, you can't replicate culture, you can't replicate vision. So you can, on some degree, you can mimic it, but you can't replicate it. And that's where, if you then try and force it, it actually becomes a dictatorship, and that's not a healthy place. That's not really why you started it. So get your ego out of the way. Definitely be patient, right? I was fortunate enough to, have you heard of C.T. Fletcher? He's a big African-American fellow from the States. He swears more than I do. And I spent a little bit of time just interviewing with him when I was in the States my first year, a couple of years back. And I said to him, why do you think you are where you are? And why do you think you've gotten to where you got to, now? And he goes, look, and he's in his late 50s. And he goes, man, I'm just an old motherfucker that held on when everyone else let go. And it's like, if you really, really believe about making change, start locally, start with this person here. And then as you mature, the business will grow and spread. And I think that's a far healthier way to do it, as opposed to, I just changed. I wanted to be the guy that built a business really quickly and was, look at me, look how good I am. I'm changing lives, living the dream and all that kind of shit. And it all comes from a place of wanting to be liked. Yeah, that's being honest. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, I just started working with a startup, and we talk about premature growth, right? So that's, a bit what comes to mind here, how dangerous that can be. But also, what I used to do is setting these massive goals for myself, and that came a lot from a place. Look at me. Look, this is who I want to be. This is, this came from that kind of inner thing, what you just described, of more like what our people think about me or look at me, rather than really playing the inner game first and growing personally.
I don't have to be successful. I just have to look it, right? Yeah. So that was my prospect for sure, if I was being honest.
Yeah, very good. If you look at your future, where do you see yourself in 5, 10 years?
Would I see myself?
Mm-hmm.
In a work setting, in a contribution setting? Which setting exactly, or overall?
Well,
the role that I play within society. I'm just trying to understand. Otherwise, it's a very broad question.
Well, I'd like to. I'll give you the freedom to answer it how you like. I mean, we just talked about the inner game. So, what kind of you grow? You said you're a student. You grow yourself. Well, where do you want to take yourself and Func Fitness, for instance?
Okay, cool, good. So, firstly, like, I want to continue going down the psychology path. I really enjoy understanding that. Over the last, I did an NLP training, and it wasn't just like, I should do this. It's something that I pre-studied for in many different ways before. And then neurolinguistic programming was saying that I think people need to be careful of. It's kind of like someone like with a black belt with no morals it's a dangerous person, right? It's not a good person. But a black belt with morals doesn't need to tell you they're a black belt. So I think that was a way for me to learn a bit about psychology. But I mean, I'm fascinated by Jung and Freud and William Reich is someone that I haven't heard much about, but also Stoicism and Jordan Peterson. I would listen to countless amounts of his stuff and find all that really quite fascinating as well. So there's also other things such as spiral dynamics and all this sort of stuff, which is it's all psychology based, that allows me to look at this and go, well, you want to lose weight. Okay, well, why is that the case? And be able to support people on that level, because we've all seen people that have had complete success, which actually was their complete failure. And it's, in the sense of going, I finally achieved X and I feel empty. That's failure, right? You achieved it. And that's the same as like someone that achieves a goal. They're like, I've always wanted to do this ever since I was 10. It's like, how the fuck are you meant to think that 10-year-old you knows what's best for 40-year-old you? Right? You set a goal when you were 10 with that minimal amount of knowledge, and now you're still pursuing it at 40. You're like, what? Go speak to your parents. Something's going on. Like, you're trying to get someone's approval back there more often or not, right? And what I'm getting at there is learning more about how to really support that. I really enjoy doing that. It's what I do within my mentoring clients. It's what I do already with in my 1-day seminars in connected coaching, and also my 4-day internships as well. So it's the ability to people go, I want to learn more about how to communicate and do that. It's like, yeah, okay, I'm going to hold up a mirror for 2 days and you're going to cry and then we're going to make things better. It's just like, let's look inward first, and then we see how we project ourselves rather than just trying to, change the world. So continue down that path. I really enjoy that. I'm building a functional training certification with a company in Brisbane called OnFit, which are an RTO, registered training organization. So finally get that up this year is the plan. And then with Func, we're not an exercise facility. We've positioned ourselves as an educational facility or a social media and events company. And so the idea is to make sure that we can continually educate and improve the health IQ of people so that they can go out and take care of themselves, as opposed to needing a codependency on an individual. So, yeah.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool. In that sense, actually, gets me into my next question. And what you want to do, I think, is in my opinion, is a different approach to traditional gym. But also, I could imagine that some people may struggle with that. So, what do you think is like kind of the biggest barrier, or the biggest barrier you have to overcome to move forward into this direction?
What do I think how to overcome the biggest barrier? Is that what you said?
Yeah, well, to move forward into this direction, what do you think? What's in your way right now to?
What is the barrier?
Yeah.
The barrier is myself. Not just because I think that's the right answer. It's just like, no, I've looked at everything else, and I'm like, that's not the fucking issue, Dave. I see the issue. Do the work, dickhead. And I mean that from, a genuine, honest, like going, oh, okay. I'm not waiting on someone. I can make that phone call, can't I? So it's the barrier is myself in that regard. The external barriers that I don't have control over, is the market. That's definitely one. And so rather than, this is where it's nice to think, but it's actually what we talk about. It's like, we're not in the health industry teaching people. We're in the people industry teaching health. And so we need to continue to communicate to people. We need to continue to make sure that we're able to connect with people and build better relationships with that. And not just because it's a nice way to build rapport so I can sell something. That's the wrong way to go about things. It's like, you shouldn't have to tell someone you care. And that's what we continually work with. It's just like, look, if you want to make a change, then we have a framework for that and the support for that. The doors are open. If you're keen and this feels like the right facility for you, then let us know when you're ready, kind of thing, right? And so the things that I suppose external really are the market. But other than that, everyone's on a different level, especially if you look at spiral dynamics, or the spiral, which is by a psychologist called Claire Graves. It talks about the 9 levels of consciousness. And you like understanding this allowed me to understand where I was at certain stages and how I responded to things. But also when I'm talking on this level, then the person here or the person there may not connect with that. So it's like, okay, how can I adapt my behavior and my communication to make sure that I can communicate to a larger population and meet them where they're at? So, and I can't control where they're at, but I can control how I learn how to communicate better.
Very good. Very good. And I think this is such an important part of, if you want to get yourself out there, to really find that connection with people, but in a really genuine way and in a genuine, authentic way. And then really always focusing on building this relationship. And I think one big thing for me is like not focusing on the close, and however, if you have a sales conversation or if you just have your product out there, but focusing on, I have something I'm totally believe in and 100% support, and let's see if you're in the right space in your life to come with me on this journey.
Yeah. I think, talking about what you're talking about, you would actually really appreciate the work of spiral dynamics. So Claire Graves didn't write it, another 2 of his students did. But the reason why I say that is that it has I don't know what you call it, a chart, a structure or whatever it is, a system which is called OAC, I suppose, if you want to call it anything. but it's open, arrested, or closed, and allows us to sort of go and ask a couple of questions and recognize if somebody's open to change. Because that's the thing, if someone walks in my door, they're not like, oh, I'm just looking for sameness. Like, they're not doing that. There's some sort of discomfort that forced them to come to a really uncomfortable place. Like, we're in an industrial area, right? And it's a big size gym, and there's no mirrors, and there's no, machines that are familiar. Like, there's dogs, there might be some guys with their shirts off. There's definitely fit people here, but there's definitely people that are just, and this is the whole idea. Like, I don't care. We have people that are 130 kilos, right? Like, and that's clearly someone who's 130 kilograms, unless they're 7'5", is going to be probably carrying too much weight. But guess what? They're the same human being as the person who's got his shirt off. They're the same human being in the sense that they come here for the exact same reason, and that's because they're both trying to better themselves. And so we don't see that. What we see is the person improving. And so if we can get a better gauge of going, is this person open, or are they arrested and a little bit resistant, if you could think that way, or are they closed to change? It's like, it allows me to really save time and effort and money of going, why am I trying to help change someone who's closed? So that's something that took too long to learn.
How do you achieve this in your gym? I mean, there's probably a certain culture you want to that creates in your gym. How do you do that?
How do we establish a supportive culture? It's important to have a really good gardener that's able to pull out the weeds and recognize the weeds or do all that sort of shit. But realistically, our culture is really, really supportive, and it is really, really good. And I say that because, we've got over 100 people, 120 clients, whatever the case might be. I know all of them. My coaches know all of them. They're not even my coaches, my team, really. They've been a part of the team for over 5 years, all of them, right? So it's like, that's a big part of why I've been able to go through difficult situations, is not because of me, but because of the team, right? Having them stay together has been able to really help and support. And because of that, all our coaches actually give a shit, legitimately care. They legitimately care about the people that's in front of them. And so, there's a thing called don't drop the baby, which effectively means that when someone comes in for their first session, they're a baby in the sense that you wouldn't leave a baby by itself, right? You wouldn't leave it without attention. When it comes in, you want to make sure it's being carried all the way around. And so the goal when people first come in here isn't to go, let's try and wow them with our knowledge. The goals are make sure this person has fun, right? They can be challenged on some level, but they need to have fun. If they have fun, they'll come back. If they come back, then the chance of them being consistent and getting somewhere in 12 months is significantly larger, right? If we try and wow them with our knowledge, they'll feel stupid more often than not, or threatened, or that they're not good enough. And then there goes the same story that probably kept them unhealthy in the first place. So it's really making sure that all that sort of stuff becomes crucial. Funnily enough, everyone high fives after every workout. It's kind of that probably sounds a bit cultish, but if you look at the word cult and look at the culture, it's kind of a reason why they're kind of similar. But also because that high five is actually an anchor. So when they high five, that's an emotion being anchored. And so I've just finished a workout. I feel really good. That's actually an anchor. It's one of the smartest business decisions I made by accident when I was younger. So yeah, the culture and that side of things is crucial. We have quarterly events for our clients where we catch up, do a workout, have a barbecue, or go for dinner. I think the biggest thing is that I don't care about you getting a heavier squat nearly as much as I care about what you're doing outside of the gym and make sure that you're okay. We've had clients obviously go through divorces, miscarriages, all sorts of difficult situations that widowers, what do you do? Oh, you should be squatting more. No, it's just come in, just get moving.
Yeah, get moving.
When we go back to just see a person as a human being, they're going to be a human being for a long time, then we can start to assess that and build a different culture.
Very good, very good. So sounds like I'm having some tendencies to go back to the gym.
That's good. Yeah, go have some fun.
Yeah, have some fun. Exactly. Dave, usually just for the end of the podcast, I usually ask them for the 3 best pieces of advice to, in the sense of growing your wellness business, but maybe we change it today a little bit and about like growing yourself, for your inner game.
Sure. Okay.
By the way, if you're confident with that one.
Okay, so 3 bits of advice to improve your inner game. I think getting yourself a coach on some level is really crucial. And now sometimes your coach / mentor could literally be in books. I don't mind, but or for me, like audio. So I subscribe to YouTube Red. It's YouTube Red, not RedTube U, just to clarify. And what that allows me to do is to download YouTube videos on, like when I'm online, like when I'm in Wi-Fi, and I can listen to them with a phone locked offline, right? So I can download all these lectures and the amount of anything on YouTube I can download and listen to offline. And so that's one of the things that I would listen to, maybe somewhere between 7 to 10 hours a week of YouTube content, podcasts, maybe all that sort of stuff, probably more most weeks. And so that's an easy way to help consciously wire my subconscious. And I really highly recommend people do that as well. And people go, oh, if I can't listen to a podcast and write it down, I don't see the point. I'm like, fuck, if you lived in Australia or not, you know the LOZAD, and you've never gone, can't wait to recite the LOZAD. I can't wait to recite all the words to Anchorman. It's just your brain will subconsciously pick things up and will remember it. And so if over the space of, if you put in just an hour a day, let's hypothetically, as you drive around, right? 7 hours a week over the space of 7 weeks, that's 49 hours, right? 7 weeks compared to that of a year, you start to see how those hours accumulate. Compared to the person that doesn't do that, I know who's going to be thinking stronger, who's going to be thinking better, who's going to be learning more. So I think that's one way to really be able to do that. I also think another thing would be really important. So that's the coach and mentor, but it's also then consciously wire your subconscious. Do variation of that. Do both if you can, but that's 1. 2, put in your calendar an hour, half an hour, whatever it is, to be able to do some sort of reading and journal away from your phone. And so don't use your phone because you're like, oh, I'll just check what that means on social media. Get off it, put it away, just pick something to read, and also have a book there. And what I would do is I'm reading, and in my book, I write distractions. If I'm reading and I'm like, my brain will like, oh, check that on social media, or here's a name for it. I write down my distractions so I can keep reading, and then I'll go through those distractions or musings afterwards. So I think that's another way to really make sure that you can build discipline in feeding that. And I would also then, number 3, recommend that you have more in-depth conversations. It surprises me how often I would be chatting to like really intelligent people. People that I really put in high regard, and they're like, I love my conversations with you. I don't have these with anyone else. And I'm like, fuck, you need new friends. I'm like, or at least like more. I'm like, because talking is thinking. We neglect to understand that. We think that we can just sit here and think, and it's not true. We need to be able to communicate. You ever said something that's like, blah, 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 and you're like, that sounded different in my head. I'm like, everything sounds different up there, right? Absolutely. So have conversations and get used to just talking and thinking and debating and being wrong and understand that you're not right. And I think if you're able to do those 3 things, you'll actually have a better relationship with yourself, which therefore you then have a better relationship with other people.
I love that. And especially the last one, I totally believe in. Speaking out something out loud can be something very powerful. Like if you goal setting, like so many people have so many things in their head, and we all have our own dialogue, but actually speaking it out, as you said, can be very often sound and feel very different. But also if you have a problem in your head, you're trying to work out in your head, if you actually speak with someone about sometimes I solve a problem simply by telling my partner, Teresa, my partner in business and life, just telling her about the problem. I cannot talk myself to the solution.
Yep, absolutely. My girlfriend's funny because I'll do the same thing. I'll be like, oh, this is my problem, right? I wouldn't say this is my problem, but I'm like this. And then she wants to solve it because she wants me to be happy and not have issues and this. I'm like, stop it, because what you're doing is you're taking away my ability to problem solve. You're taking away that power of mine. So I'm like, stop being so nice, which is kind of funny. But it's the same reason why people are like, oh, fuck. Hey, have you seen don't worry, I found it. Like, that's the same thing. Like, it's the same thing that we do, right? And so as soon as we speak, we seem to find it more often than not. So I think that's have more in-depth conversations and find people you can have that with and question and debate and pull your thoughts apart and question your thoughts. Don't doubt them, just question them. The truth will always be the truth. Yeah. Truth doesn't care. So I think that's very healthy.
Very good. Dave, thank you so much for joining in today. and it was a great chat, and there was so many valuable things in there. So thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure, mate. Thank you very much for having me on. I enjoyed the conversation with you.
Great.